Know that the Lord is God. It is He that made us, and we are His people and the sheep of His pasture. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him, bless His name, for the Lord is good. His steadfast love endures forever, and His faithfulness to all generations.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I want to thank the family, Kiewit family, for inviting me to share my kaleidoscope John's memories. I've known John since early 60s. He and I were active in what they call steel shipping containers. John was working for Inland Steel in Holland. They have several European factories, and he was transferred to the U.S. because of his knowledge of engineering, great skill, and imagination. I worked for a small family-owned company called Central Can. Neither of the two companies are now in existence, partly because of the advent of plastic containers. Nevertheless, John's skills was very much sought after, and I got to know him through an organization called Steel Shipping Container Institute. They were a conglomeration of manufacturers, big, small, and intermediate, and they were an industry group representing them in concessions on labor and supply and so forth. They had two conventions during the year. One of them, the big one, was always in very nice places skill, imagination, and very hard work. Now, in a nutshell, manufacture of steel shipping containers starts with a very heavy rolled steel and ends up in a finished container. In the meantime, there is cutting, there is welding, there is shearing, there is curing, and extraordinary noise. In fact, St. John ran several companies in the U.S. Eventually, it resulted in a partial loss of his hearing. There were two achievements that he is noted for. One of them was increasing the speed of the lines. Now, a 5-gallon container used to be manufactured at about 300 per hour, and he nudged it up to double that amount. The other most important invention was to design a pail that would fit one into the other. Now, the results were that when a railroad car would hold 3,000 containers, with his invention, it tripled 9,000 containers, which was very, very effective for long distance. The pails also were cured by high heat, both inside and outside coatings, and the noise level in the plants was unbelievable. On a lighter note, John and I had a standing date to play tennis every Saturday, and for years and years. And John was a very skilled player. He utilized his engineering skills in making sure that the angle of ascent equaled the angle of descent, and the ball would inevitably fall 2 inches off the net, 2 inches above the net, which completely frustrated me and many others. But that also showed how very pensive and considerate and far-thinking John was. And that characteristic prevailed in all the other effects and affairs that he was involved in. As you know, John was on the session of this church different times. He was a trustee. They actually fixed the church. And he was on deacons also. Now, one of the things to remember is that the lights that shine upon us, the very strong lights, John was the one that actually designed them and helped to install them. So in a real way, that is a lasting memorial to him. When we finished our tennis, we used to cool off with some wonderful Heinekens. And as the conversation progressed, we would cover everything under the sun. Principally, we talked about our families. It just so happens that my kids and his kids were about the same age. And the one thing we always regretted is that they all flew the coop. Nobody lived in Riverside. Some of them lived internationally, and all my kids settled in Tucson, Arizona. So that's the way it went. In consideration of discussions, John was very, very pensive. He certainly was not the one to speak first. But when he analyzed the comments that other people made, he would eventually arrive at a conclusion which was persuasive, well thought out, and gracious. John also did wide travels, and we compared notes, both national politics, local politics, church affairs, family affairs, and so forth. In all of these thoughts and remembrances, John was very gracious, very thoughtful, and always concerned as to not necessarily what was his idea, but what he thought would be a better idea, hopefully accepted by the majority of the people. He was a great moderator, very, very intense and soft-spoken, and very, very thoughtful. John had all the characteristics that one admires in mankind. As the Germans say, he was a Mensch. And that, as we all know, combines strength with loving enthusiasm, concerns for others. John was gracious and loving and honest.